Hi, so today I'm going to be talking about another book that artists should read. This one's called Christian and Oriental Philosophy of Art by Ananda K. Coomaraswamy. I'm sorry I butchered his name. Hi, my name is Luis Escobar. I'm a storyboard artist on the Simpsons television show. I've been working on the show for over 25 years now, and I'm here to empower you. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I messed up. He's an Indian, obviously, from India. Ananda K. Coomaraswamy. Kurumas, Kuru, man. Okay. Anyway, this book. um, I read this book out of mostly out of curiosity. Somebody recommended it, and so I read it. Now, this book is really quite deep, and it changed the way I saw a lot of things. You don't have to agree with everything. I certainly don't, but it says a lot of. It contrasts the way that art used to be philosophically, traditionally, the way that art was perceived traditionally when, especially in the Middle Ages, before postmodernism kind of took over and kind of changed the purpose of art. So I'm going to quote a few things that I thought were really thought provoking, but I really highly recommend picking this book up. So here's one of the things, or one of the ideas put forth in the book. Okay, so one of the things about art, especially in our modern sensibilities, is that it's an ornament. It's a type of ornament. You ornament your house with it, right? Yeah. Here's the thing. Like, for example, if you have jewelry and it's an ornament, if it's a painting and you hang it on your wall, if you have a chair and you have a specific type of chair, you buy a specific type of table to ornament your house. In our modern sensibility, we think of ornamentation as just pleasing aesthetically, right? Like it just makes you feel good because it feels right. It looks right. It's a very subjective feeling thing. Okay, but in the traditional worldview, ornamentation was seen more like equipment. So ornamentation, for example, if you had a box and you ornament it with a painting, you're now equipping the box. You're now equipping your house. You're now equipping your body. So the ornament is equipment. And equipment is meant to be useful. It's a useful tool. And that's what ornamentation traditionally used to mean. So a thing that has a painting on it, like an object that is painted on it or sculpted on it, or a wall that has a thing, the ornament is equipment. Now you've made the wall useful. You've made the things you're carrying useful. You made your house useful. You made the table useful in a completely different function than simply being a table. It is now a useful, it's equipped. It has equipment that is meant to be useful. And most of the time that use was mostly worship, but it was also an orientation to an absolute, to a truth, to an objective absolute, something that is meant to raise up the thing. So it was almost a type of education. It was almost a type of acknowledgement of a greater. It's like Superman. Like I'm a superhero guy, so it's like Superman's, truth and fighting for truth and justice. That's the ornament, right? That's the thing. That's the useful. That's the equipment. So you put that truth and justice in all the objects, and then you make it equipped with something. Like you make it so that it rises up higher. So that's what the ornament was, right? That's stuff like that. Like that's the difference between postmodern thought about ornaments, just pretty, as opposed to ornament as equipment. Okay, so I'm going to quote some really interesting things. So I'm here. Let me get the first one. So here's one, and then it says, and actually let me get out of okay, so that I can. Okay, here we go. So it says, whatever is made only to give pleasure, as Plato put it, is a yeah, you're gonna have to excuse if there's any misspelling or grammar problem. I typed it out myself from the book, so there's gonna be kind of messed up stuff in here. So whatever is made only to give pleasure, as Plato put it, is a toy for the delectation of that part of us that passively submits to emotional storms, whereas the education to be derived from works of art should be an education in the love of what is ordered and the dislike of what is disordered. We have proposed to educate the public to ask first of all these two questions of a work of art. Is it true or beautiful? And what good use does it serve? So the idea being that the purpose of art is to make you think of the true and the beautiful, right? And again, the beautiful is the physical manifestation of the good, right? So, and is it true? Is what is being proposed true? So it's not just, I have a feeling, I think this thing. So that in postmodernism, in the way that art is seen, a postmodern artist is meant to come up with an idea that is original to them, that may not even be true, but they're trying to say something that may be completely false, right? But it's art, so you just say it, and then you have to contemplate that thing. And it's like, well no. Is it true? If it's not, then, and is it beautiful? And is it useful? So if it's not true and it's not beautiful, in other words, it's not good, and it's not true, then it serves no purpose. It has no use, because it doesn't actually bring you to anything true. Which again, that's the idea here. I think that's being said. Again, let me see. It should educate in the love of what is ordered and a dislike of what is disordered. So that's the idea. As opposed to trying to disordered, meaning it's a different cosmology. It's not the same kind of what the scientific cosmology of order. It's a little bit different. What we consider order now. Does it actually is it grounded in something, or is it just chaos that would bring death? That's the idea. Like the chaos that brings death, because there's nothing to stand on. It's like living on the ocean without any boat or anything to stand on. You're just laying in the ocean. You could live there for like a little bit, and then eventually you'll get tired and drown. And so that's living in disorder, right? Like there's nothing to stand on because you're just swimming in the ocean. So that's the idea. That's the cosmological idea being put forth here. That if the art is just talking about chaos and there's nothing for you to stand on, then and it just leads to nothing. It leads to death. So what good use does it serve? Well, it doesn't serve anything if you're dead, right? That's kind of where it's coming from. That's kind of the idea. All right, and then here's the other thing. Here's another quote that I like. It says that the greater the ignorance of modern times, the deeper grows the darkness of the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages and the East are mysterious to us only because we know not what to think, but what we like to think. As humanists and individualists, it flatters us to think that art is an expression of personal feelings and sentiment, preferences, and free choice, unfettered by the science of mathematics and cosmology. But medieval art was not like free to ignore truth. For them, ars sin essentia nihil, which One of the flaws of this book is that it never translates the French or the Latin that is being quoted. It's really annoying. You would have to go outside and try to figure out what the blazes it means. I didn't do that, but I understand enough Latin to kind of make this out. It says, art without science is nothing. That's basically what it means. By science, we mean, of course, the reference of all particulars of unifying print. By science, we mean, of course, the reference of all particulars of unifying principles, not the laws of statistical prediction. This is a fancy sentence that just basically means by science, we mean philosophy, not scientific method. I don't know why he didn't just say it like that. It just sounds, it's just, I'm like trying to figure out what the blazes he's saying in this sentence. Art without philosophy is nothing, basically what it's trying to say. So, right philosophy, right cosmology. So the idea being the difference between our modernist art and the traditional form of art is that the humanist individualist is free to say whatever he wants, whether it's right or wrong, whether it's true or not true. While the medieval artist was trying to put forth some semblance of a reflection of truth in what he was drawing or painting or creating, whatever it was, because there was the notion of objective truth. Now, that's where the modernists and the traditional worldviews clash, is the notion that truth exists and all this other stuff. And that's a whole other can of worms that I don't want to get into, but I can. But that's the idea. That's kind of like the difference between the postmodern and the traditional. But it's really interesting that the way that he puts it, and he clarifies a lot of stuff. That's one of the things that I really liked about this. The usefulness of art thing is really the thing that's really hurting. It's hurting me. Okay, so here's the other one. Here's another quote. In the traditional arts, it is never who said, but only what was said that concerns us. For all that is true by whomever it has been said has its origin in the spirit. So the first sane question that we can ask about works of art: what was it for and what does it mean? So again, it's about meaning, and it has to be true. And it's not necessarily in the traditional in the classical world. It wasn't so much who did the art, but what was said, right? It wasn't who said it, but what was being said. And so that was more important than the artist. The artist was the medium by which the truth was being put forth. That's one of the things. And then the other thing is, what was it for and what does it mean? So again, this is something that our modern worldview, or postmodern art worldview, has kind of ruined art in this way. That because it's completely subjective, it has no purpose. What is it for? Art for art's sake, right? It's purposeless except for my own self-centeredness, self-expression, right? So that has no purpose other than just me. It's like passing gas, basically. Oh, it just kind of relieved my gas problem, right? That's art. So it has no purpose. It has no other than relief, right? So that's the thing that has ruined it. But the classical worldview always, the art always had a purpose. It had a purpose and a function. It was functional. It was more like a toaster than just ethereal nothingness. So it had a purpose, it had a function, and art you wanted it because it was useful. And it was useful because of the second answer, what does it mean? Because it had meaning. So it was useful because it had meaning, and it had a useful meaning that was pragmatic. That it actually helped somebody in their life, in their everyday life. So it had a function. Even if it was just you walked into your room, you saw the image of Jesus on the wall or something, and then you had a moment of reflection from which you got out of your material world up to a higher level, or you prayed or whatever it was, but that was a functional thing. It was pragmatic. It actually lifted you up. It took you out of yourself. It did something that helped you in your everyday, right? That's the idea. It has a function. So that brings me to two different kinds of definitions here. One of them being, what is art? So it's interesting. It's a bit of a discussion here, but that's the thing. In our postmodern world, we just think of art is a fart, right? Art is whatever I feel like it. Oh, it makes me feel better if I fart. So that's basically what it is. But then, but in the classical world, it's the normal humane view that art is simply the right way of making things, whether symphonies or airplanes. It's just the right way of making a thing. That's it. That's what art was. Traditionally, it's like, okay, I need to make a chair. It needs to work as a chair. I can't make it out of sand because it'll fall apart. It's not functional that way. If I have a cup, I can't make it out of sand because it wouldn't function as a cup. But if you make a cup that works as a cup and you could drink coffee in it, especially if it's a coffee mug, right? Like if you make a coffee mug and you could drink coffee off of it, you've created an art. You created art. Because why? Because you simply made an object that functions as it ought, right? That was the point. That would be the art. You made a functional thing that is useful, and it functions as it ought to be, as it should. You could put coffee in it. You could drink from it. You made art. An airplane that flies, you've made art because it functions as it ought. Right? That was the idea of, so that was art back then. Traditionally, the function, it was functional. It worked. It did what it was meant to do. That was what art meant. Traditionally, now it means basically nothing. Masterpiece. Yes. Okay. So, and then there's another thing, quote from the book. What is a masterpiece? Okay, so like a masterpiece is often like, oh, it's this thing that only geniuses do, right? That was the thing that now we think of masterpieces. Masterpieces, according to the tradition, this is where it came from. Is just the masterpiece is simply the proof of competence expected and demanded from every graduate artist who is not permitted to set up a workshop of his own unless he has produced such proof. So it's basically proof that you could actually consistently produce a functioning thing. That's it. That's what it was. It's like, if you can make a thing to be the thing and it functions, you've proven that you are good enough to do the thing. You are an artist. That is your masterpiece. You have completed, you have graduated, you have proven that you can make a cup. That functions. That's your masterpiece. You have shown, and then you can do it consistently. That's your masterpiece. That's it. So now you can be a professional. So it's really much more down to earth and much more practical than it is now thought of. So yeah, like if you read the book, it really changed my mind about how functional art is. When I do something, is it just self-centered, or does it have a practical use? That's really, at the end of the day, what I left with after reading this book. I highly recommend it. The only thing I would say is that if I have a critique, is that the last two chapters I didn't like. I thought it was kind of meh. It goes into the Indian idea from India, I guess the Hindu idea of the ideal portraiture, and I disagree. I disagree with it. Like I'm like, no, it's not medieval. In other words, I agree more with the medieval than I do with the Hindu notion of portraiture. So portraiture as never actually drawing a person, but drawing the platonic forms of a person, like something that is beyond the divinity, like drawing the divinity of a person rather than drawing the person. It's a little. I'm not going to go into the reasons why I think metaphysically that doesn't make any sense, but yeah, I disagree with that. And then the other one was popular art versus folklore art. And again, that definitely is much more culturally Hindu. That difference isn't as useful or practical, or doesn't connect in the same way. Then it's not as universal. It's not as universal. So, but otherwise, so the last two chapters I was kind of meh on, but the first, all the other chapters were really good. And again, my one critique about this is that there's a lot of footnotes and all this stuff, and there's a lot of quotes, and then sometimes the quotes are in Latin or in French, without a translation of the freaking quote. It's super annoying. But otherwise, I like the book. I highly recommend it. If you're an artist, please read this. It may change the way you think about the way you approach art, the way it has me. It kind of blew my mind. I don't know what to do with myself sometimes now when I'm going to do something and I'm like, is this useful? How useful is this? What use does it have? Like that's the questions I ask now. Like that's why my stuff on Patreon, if you look at the Patreon rewards videos and stuff, you're gonna see that my art's changed, because I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do, because now I'm thinking, I'm trying to think less self-centered, less selfish, and more practical. Like more, how is this gonna be useful for somebody? Right? It's a completely different change. It's a mindset change. So again, highly recommend this. I hope you found this review useful, and I will talk to you next time. All right, bye.